It was the sweltering summer of 1838 when Elijah Thorndale, a man of towering presence and a mind consumed by ambition, cemented his control over Pinewood Estate. Situated deep within the dense swamps of the Mississippi Delta, Pinewood sprawled across hundreds of acres of sugarcane fields, forested wetlands and river channels. From his mansion, perched on the highest hill, Thorndale declared himself a deity in flesh, the god of his land and of the people who labored beneath him. Every morning, Thorndale rose before the sun. He insisted that the enslaved men, women, and children kneel at the edge of the plantation clearing as he stepped out onto the veranda. "Praise me," he would demand, his voice booming across the fields, carried by the humid wind. His subjects obeyed, terrified that failure would bring the wrath of what he claimed was divine power. Mothers held infants tightly, whispering reassurances as their own knees trembled in fear. Thorndale's god complex was reinforced by mirrors strategically placed throughout the mansion. In these mirrors he did not see a man, he saw perfection. He adorned every room with gilded frames, golden crosses, and crafted symbols of his imagined divinity. Every object, every corner of Pinewood, was a shrine to his ego. Visitors were often struck with a combination of awe and horror, the line between reverence and terror blurred. Among the enslaved, fear was mingled with despair, yet even in these dark corners, whispers of rebellion began. One such whisper came from a young woman named Celeste. Sharp-minded, observant, and unyielding, she began noting the routines, the patrols, the timing of Thorndale's inspections, and the weaknesses in his otherwise rigid control. She saw that Thorndale's obsession with worship left him predictable. Every ritual, every forced chant, every ceremonial display revealed the vulnerabilities of a man obsessed with godhood rather than governance. Celeste's mind worked quietly, like water wearing away stone. Each act of obedience she performed was double-edged, outwardly submission, inwardly calculation. The enslaved children became her confidants in small ways. She whispered instructions, helped them memorize routes, and kept them safe from the punishments Thorndale would unleash for even minor disobedience. As you listen to this tale, remember to subscribe to Hidden Tales. Stories like Celeste reveal the courage hidden in history's shadows, voices that deserve to be heard. Thorndale's family mirrored his delusions. His son Edward and his younger daughter Lillian were raised as heirs not to a household, but to divinity itself. From the very first years of their lives, they witnessed the unyielding discipline and awe demanded by their father. They were taught that to question his godhood was to question the laws of existence itself. By 1840, Thorndale's rituals had grown more elaborate, more brutal, and more public. Weekly ceremonies were held where the enslaved were forced to perform choreographed demonstrations of devotion. They sang, knelt, danced, and presented handmade tributes, all under the watchful eyes of Thorndale's family and overseers. Any deviation, any faltering, was met with swift and terrifying punishment. Children were separated from parents during these rituals, and laborers were required to construct altars, polish mirrors, and arrange offerings of food and flowers. Thorndale believed that through repetition, fear, and forced reverence, he could mold the hearts of his subjects. But his mind, consumed by delusion, failed to notice that obedience was masking defiance. Celeste studied him silently, mapping the estate in her mind. She memorized guard patrols, recorded the timing of rituals, and noted which overseers were loyal and which could be manipulated. She formed secret networks with other enslaved people, using song, coded gestures, and hidden markings to communicate. Each act of resistance was small, a subtly misaligned offering, a chore performed slightly out of order, but collectively these acts undermined Thorndale's authority. Pinewood Estate became a stage. Thorndale performed daily ceremonies for hours on end. Mirrors reflected his godlike image, amplifying his delusions. He demanded absolute devotion, believing that failure to worship him correctly would bring divine retribution upon the entire estate. Yet the more he demanded, the more cracks appeared. The enslaved were learning, adapting, and waiting. If you find these stories of courage and strategy compelling, hit that like button and share this video. Hidden Tales brings the voices of the forgotten back to life. Make sure these stories are not lost. Edward, Thorndale's son, began showing signs of doubt. While outwardly enforcing rituals with zeal, he privately questioned his father's godhood. Celeste noticed this and subtly encouraged his hesitation, planting seeds of doubt that would later play a pivotal role in Thorndale's downfall. By now, Thorndale's obsession extended beyond mere worship. He demanded that the enslaved construct elaborate symbols in his honor, choreograph dances to tell stories of his supposed divinity, and memorize daily prayers recounting his greatness. These rituals, though terrifying, became a form of surveillance, every movement monitored, every word analyzed. Celeste's intelligence allowed her to navigate these dangers carefully, protecting herself and others while preparing for a long-term plan of resistance. By 1845, the cracks in Thorndale's control had widened into opportunities. Celeste had created a network of observation and communication that spanned the entire plantation. She trained other enslaved adults and children in the art of subtle defiance. Missives were hidden in daily chores. Signals were sent through song. Tools were subtly sabotaged. Every ritual became a chance to undermine Thorndale's authority without alerting him. Thorndale, increasingly paranoid, demanded longer, more intense ceremonies. He punished those who failed, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days, locking people in pitch-dark rooms or forcing them into grueling labor without food. And yet, the enslaved learned to navigate this terror. Celeste's meticulous planning ensured that each act of resistance was timed to avoid detection. Edward Thorndale's doubts grew. He began questioning his father's every command, privately refusing to participate in rituals when alone. Celeste carefully guided him through subtle manipulations, ensuring that when the time came, he would unwittingly aid the rebellion. Lillian, his daughter, remained loyal to her father's delusions, but her naivety became a weakness that Celeste exploited. The estate itself reflected Thorndale's madness. Mirrors everywhere, golden altars, ceremonial halls, and winding corridors. Even the natural environment was manipulated to reflect his authority. Hedges shaped into symbols, fountains designed to honor him, and pathways that forced the enslaved to perform tasks under surveillance. But Celeste had memorized every inch. Every hall, every path, every ritual became a tool in her strategy. By the winter of 1851, Celeste's plan came to fruition. Through careful sabotage, misinformation, and timing, the enslaved began escaping under the cover of darkness. Thorndale, consumed by his own rituals, failed to notice until it was too late. Edward, guided by subtle manipulations over years, no longer enforced his father's delusions but acted in ways that further isolated him. Thorndale confronted the chaos of his life. The estate was emptying, the rituals meaningless, and the power he had hoarded slipping away. Celeste and her allies had orchestrated a flawless escape without a single death among those fleeing. Thorndale, left alone, realized that his godhood was a facade, a delusion that had destroyed his family, isolated him, and left him powerless. Stories like Celeste show the power of intelligence, courage, and resilience. Subscribe to Hidden Tales to uncover more forgotten voices, more hidden histories, and more stories that demand to be remembered. Share this story to honor those who resisted tyranny in silence. Celeste's escape marked the beginning of Pinewood Estate's decline. Thorndale, once feared as a god, became a cautionary tale, a man undone by his own arrogance. Newspapers later chronicled the collapse of his estate, detailing the mysterious exodus of his enslaved workers and the ruin of his family line. Celeste went on to live a life of freedom, quietly sharing her knowledge with those who needed it most. Her story became a whispered legend among former enslaved people, a testament to strategic bravery, patience, and intelligence in the face of unimaginable cruelty. Her legacy is clear. No matter how absolute a tyrant's power, the combination of courage, strategy, and unity can dismantle even the most godlike of masters.